Hello, I am Rob, and let's talk about some games. This one is Mutazione. It's out on PS4 and on Steam on the PC, and I was won over by this. Let's be perfectly frank. The developers, Die Gute Fabrik, it's a Danish developed game, or Scandinavian developed game, in which they themselves have described it as swamp opera, which is just delightful, frankly. It's also been described by other people as mutant soap opera, but I want to go with swamp opera because it's just a better phrase, really. What it is a very heavy story-based game in which you play Kai. As the game opens, you are set off by your mother to go to this island where your grandfather is, who's suffering. He's ill, so your mother sends Kai, the character, over there to look after the grandfather and rediscover a place that her mother grew up and she's never been before. And as you're travelling over there, you have like a salty sea captain character who's basically, he sets up the world for you. He says that the island that you're going to is full of mutants, and it's why you don't get a lot of visitors, really. Other characters say it's been 20 years since the last visitor, and that visitor who visited 20 years ago is still there, so yeah. Once you're on the island, you are met by a variety of people. I mean, some look normal, some look slightly mutated, but the mutants are very, very deep in the DNA of what this game is, because you're just walking through the landscape, you're interacting with characters, and the way the characters interact, it's kind of like a text message thread, the way it's laid out on screen, but on the side of the screen, all characters that you interact with, both important and less so, have, I guess, colourful blobs, sentient colourful blobs, all over the screen that you interact with, and they either just make noises at you or, I mean, at one point there's two, I think it was in a cave, they're talking about holes in the market, about there's only one boat that brings people to the island, and yeah, these little mutants want to get in that hole in the market. So it's lovely, really, as well as interacting with people and talking with the community and getting to know the community, and in that all the characters are very, very unique and very, very diverse. It's where the swamp opera term came from. You also have to do some gardening, because as well as your grandfather being really ill, the other reason why he brings you to the island is to finish his work, which is basically to catalogue all the wild and wonderful wildlife and flora and fauna which are on that island. So it's very, very laid back game, and it scratches a certain itch for me, an itch which I kind of love, that there's games out there that scratch it. I mean, some people play games like simulation games, like let's say Spiritfarer, that's coming out on Xbox One. That spiritually feels a lot like this. Or there's Animal Crossing, or there's stuff like this, stuff where you just inhabit a world and you fall in love with its inhabitants. And that is where Mutazione is really, really excellent, I feel. So yeah, the gameplay is kind of limited. It's not going to win over anybody who wants anything that's frenetic or competitive or aggressive. I'm describing myself as this, so I'm not using this as a term of insult or whatever, but it's for old man gamers, or old woman gamers, you know, people who just want a relaxing time in a lovely little world, and it satisfies entirely on that. The art style really benefits it, because if it was photo real, I think something might be lost. I mean, it is an indie game, so obviously it's not going to be photo real, but if we're talking about hypothetical situations where a game could be anything, I think this is the best way for this game to look. Sort of, it's also like Barely Men at Sea, a game which I talked about on the channel a little while ago. It's very detailed, but it's not very detailed at the same time. It uses colour to great effect, to establish tone, to establish place, and that tone is also helped by it being very, very musical. None of the dialogue is actually voiced, so the score is incredibly important as far as keeping you invested in that world. And it's also incredibly important because it changes. The motifs change with characters, so it is just genuinely a lovely, lovely game to spend time in, and with it being effectively story-driven as well. I'd also go out and say that the script is excellent. There's none of the issues that you usually get in story-driven games where you think this is not how people talk. It's a very down-to-earth script. The dialogue is fantastic, and the characters within it are just lovely. But there's also a caveat with this. Nothing that the game does wrong or right, I'd say. More in the sense of its appeal is limited, to say the least. But if you clicked on this video, first off, thank you. But if you clicked on this video and you had that curiosity already, I think you're going to get a great deal out of this game, because I did. Mutants, swamp opera, what's not to love? Anyhow, that's Mutazione out on PS4 and PC. Do click on that like if you agree or this game piqued your interest, or comment below if you got something to add. See you next time.